So anyway, welcome to Routing and Switching with Cisco Meraki. I am going to go into some new features of the product that's been released, and most of it's still in beta firmware at this point in time, but we're going to get to that. So now, I worked hard on this thing right here. I got to show you guys. So I see a lot of folks in the room that actually have Meraki, but I see folks that don't have Meraki. So can I see a show of hands of those that do not have it or have not? Okay. Well, we have at this table your Cisco Meraki account team that's here, local in North Carolina, and all the way from San Francisco, we have Nova and we have Amelia. So if you guys have any questions, of course, they'll be downstairs. They can help you. And remember, if you go to a webinar, they're going to give you some free stuff, like a free access point, even some free switches. I think I saw that. You guys are doing now? Yeah, so who doesn't want a free switch? I want a free switch. So anyway, we're going to get started. I won't go through all these, but that's current past certifications that I've worked on. And we're going to talk about today VRRP, new features with the layer 3 switches. OSPF, which is the routing protocol that the layer 3 switches can actually handle. The DHCP enhancements, ACLs, IP version 6. We're going to do, one of my favorites is geo-based security and one-to-one NAT. A lot of this stuff you guys know because it's been in other appliances, other vendors, but it's so nice to have it in the Meraki stack now because it makes your life so much easier. And then after we go through the one-to-one NAT, we'll do some product updates, talk about the new MR access points, which we've got some up here for you to see. We've got the 802.11 AC, so that's gigabit Wi-Fi. And we've also, but we'll talk about the other new products. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns during this, raise your hand. I'll definitely talk and we'll answer those questions. Any questions? Okay, so I want to talk about the VRRP because a lot of you folks that have core routers that are other products, you've been doing this for years. But what this does is it now gives us the ability to take a single point of failure out from your core switches and then have a layer 3 redundancy with active and passive. So that means you've got your layer 3 MS device on the right-hand side. I think I have a laser pointer. Yes. Anyway, under layer 3 redundancy on the right, you've got your active and passive. And so that means you actually can have multiple connections going to different switches. And if you have a switch fail, then obviously you're up and running. That's important if you're running VDI. If you're running anything that has to do with storage, you never want to have just one single point of failure when it comes to that because that downtime is going to cost you an unimaginable amount of money to try to recover from. So N+1 is always the best way to handle this. Creating the pair, it's simple, and this is what's great about it. All of this is now just point and click and save versus actually going into the routers and configuring this stuff and knowing the CLI and doing this like you had to do in the past. Everybody had to have a CCNA or they had to have somebody that has an enormous amount of knowledge on this stuff. None of that's working. I'm getting all tangled up in this stuff. Okay, so basically, not having to have that knowledge is going to allow you guys to do this stuff much quicker and faster. Plus, with Meraki and your licenses, you get access to Meraki support 24/7, and the wait times aren't that long. You should try it if you haven't. It's actually a nice added feature. And to edit an existing pair, of course, there's the dashboard on the right. And see, last time I did this course, I did an introduction to Meraki, so I covered the dashboard and how it worked. And then I had a lot of you guys in here that already had it, so this time I'm doing something a little bit more advanced. So those of you that have not seen the dashboard, you can get with me or get with the team later, and we'll take you through it and show it to you. But it makes your life, so much easier. I'm going to keep saying that because it does. So, Another great feature is the OSPF. How many of you run any type of advanced routing in your networks now? h.IT, OSPF, those type of things. So quite a few of you. So what this is going to allow you to do is create your OSPF in a GUI that's, again, point, click, save, and you don't have to know those commands like you had to in the past. And if you notice, this is the screen that shows you what it looked like in the past. So on the left, you had to create your, you open the CLI and actually create all of that stuff. And now on the right, you just go and create your OSPF configuration, configure the switches, and put in your broadcast or your IP subnets, and then they'll broadcast, and then again, point, click, save. So once again, makes your life a little bit easier. Any questions about OSPF or any of the advanced routing protocols? Okay. So the DHCP server for the network services, it gives you the options now where you can configure options like your 67s or all of your voice over IP type options in DHCP so that you can configure your phones, your TFTP servers, your provisioning servers, all of those things from the actual device here. And it also lets you do fixed IP assignments per interface. If you have this and the switch, then you can click on the clients, find the clients in the dashboard, and change it from dynamic to fixed just with a click of a button. So when you're going through and trying to troubleshoot that, that's all available to you there in the dashboard. So the typical scenarios are simplifying deployments and consolidating the on-site equipment. So it's, you don't have everything dispersed. Right here it shows the actual DHCP server interfaces. And one of the new features on the right is the ability to do DHCP relaying now if you have a DHCP server on another sub-broadcast domain, so another subnet. So I know in Ashe County we have 2 DHCP servers, and they are all living on the server subnet, and then everything else has a relay. So in the past, we weren't able to do this, so this feature is now incorporated. And on the right, you can obviously see the layer 3 interfaces. You can choose the name of them, put in your subnets, what VLAN IDs it is, and then down at the bottom, you put your DHCP server IPs on your other VLANs. As you see, and if you can see, it's 192.168.2.1, 192.168.5.1. Those DHCP servers are obviously on different subnets in the 4 network. So that's why that becomes useful. Any questions? So another thing that's been incorporated is ACLs. And again, this is something that's not new, but it's new into the Meraki stack. So you can create your ACL security to block traffic types, clients and servers from seeing each other. I know in Ashe we have a particular reason to do that. We want the Sheriff's Department machines to not be able to see DSS and vice versa. And I'm sure most of you have those ACLs set up too. So that's what this allows you to do. And again, it's a point and click. It's like a layer 7 firewall rule. So those of you that are familiar with it, you just go into the dashboard, create your ACL rules, set your policies to allow whatever protocol you're looking for, UDP, TCP, etc. You do your source destinations, and then you can do your ports, or you can do any. So it's not complicated by putting all of those different drop downs and things, in that list. I actually like that interface better because it just kind of gets straight to the point. You can go in and put in your ports, etc. You can again filter by traffic protocol source, and then all rules in the list are processed. So I know in the past when you do ACLs from Cisco and from other vendors, you have to do things in particular order, which you still have an order here. So you can still have it at an explicit deny at the bottom, and then you have your allows, but everything will get processed. So the scenarios here again is enhancing network security, like using that for a police department or a sheriff's department. And then you've got restricting access to clients, to file servers, those types of things, typical scenarios that we run into every day. And then we can filter the traffic flow, obviously, from where it goes to what subnets, etc. Some people don't allow their servers to actually get on the internet, which is a good thing because you have that's what proxy servers and front-end servers are for. So if you have your network segmented appropriately, or what would be considered best practice, your core servers wouldn't actually access the internet. They would all get updated through a proxy. So that's what allows you to make sure that they don't touch the internet. One thing that's coming down the line, and I kind of dread it because IP version 6 just kind of scares me. It scares me because I've gotten really good at remembering IP addresses now, but can you imagine what it's going to be when you have to remember them like this long? So anyway, Meraki is capable now of the IP version 6 layer 7 traffic analysis. So that means that just like you see on the dashboard with your traffic and your clients, you can see, you can't really see it, some of you, but on the right-hand side, you have your IP version 4 address, and then of course it'll pick up your IP version 6 addresses. So you can start to search for things like that, isolate clients, and move your network into that. Is anybody here running full IPv6? Thank goodness. Well, I mean, actually, if you're going to ask me questions about it, I'll just have to defer, I guess. So anyway, everything is supported with that, and then of course additional products with the Meraki stack are going to be supported over time. It's on the roadmap. And then the typical scenario is it's the future. I don't know what it is exactly, but doesn't that give us like 4.3 billion IP addresses per square foot of Earth or something like that? So, you know, your toaster, your fridge, everything's going to get pinged. I mean, you're good. Okay, so mobile, of course, with mobile, that's obviously going to be a big deal as we become the internet of everything. Everybody's got connected devices. You know, we got heads-up displays in our goggles and glasses and everything, so they're all going to be connected. So that's why we have to have that, and that's why we have to move into that space. So it's coming at some point. So here's another screen that shows the analysis up close. Again, on the right-hand side, you can see the IPv6. Let's see. So IPv6 versus IPv4. So that's what it looks like. Any questions on this? Okay. So this is my favorite. Geo-based security. I had a government contractor contact me about 3 weeks ago, and with all the attacks coming from Asia, the Pacific Rim, Russia, you know, there's just so many things. A lot of us, when we have our current intrusion detection, intrusion avoidance systems in place, we try to set and forget. We shouldn't, but we do. And you know, I can almost say that everybody doesn't have the time to really keep up with everything that's happening. So the geo-based security gives you a feature that you can go in and filter by country. So you can deny all countries except for the United States, especially we're local government. We do business with people in our town and communities, and we do business with each other. But that's a good reason for us to block, you know, Russia, Ukraine, all the places where you have all of this malicious activity coming from. And it's all done by a click of a button, so that's what's even cooler. You just go out, it's like a layer 7 firewall rule. On the right-hand side, you can kind of see, you choose your application, if you want HTTP traffic or what other types of apps, and then you have a deny by country. And so then you choose country, and then in the right-hand side, you start to put in the countries that you're explicitly denying. So how this works is, I think it's INA or ICANN or somebody out there that divvies up all these IP addresses and they distribute them by country. And this list is huge, and it will be with IPv6 at some point too. So they take all of these IP addresses, they put them in this big list and file, and so now I think Cisco Meraki is purchasing this from somebody and then and incorporating it in, so that list gets updated and it's constantly changing. So as new IP addresses get released, then this is what's going to allow them to get put in this list. So I think that's a very important feature. So any questions about that? Yes, sir, Pete.
Is that in the current MR series?
This is not an MR for a wireless. This is an MX device, so this is what you would have as an edge gateway.
NX80?
Yeah, NX80s, but you have to have advanced security licenses and not enterprise.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's your intrusion detection and intrusion avoidance. So that's the piece that gives you that. If you don't have that, it is simply a firmware upgrade, you know, once you have the licenses. So you don't have to have new equipment, for those of you. And it is beta. Let's see, what that means is it's not an official public release. To get it, you have to call and ask, and then they enable it and then push it out. So, any more questions? Okay. So, of course, our scenarios here is, you know, you want to give internet access for employees, but they have no business to talk to people in Russia, China, etc. And then, of course, it keeps malware from originating. Bitcoin, is really popular right now with some of you, considering you've probably gotten crypto wall or crypto locker or had to deal with that. And all of this malicious activity comes from areas like that. So this is just another way to protect you. Again, security is not a magic wand that you wave. It's how many obstacles you put in place that can't actually deter someone from trying to break in, steal your data, etc. So, and then of course, keeping the traffic within the home country. And then we've got the port address translation. So this was really big. A lot of you that have not moved to an MX device or an MX product and wanted to probably were deterred at some point in the past. I was for certain applications. What that means is the one-to-one NAT, which we all had with other devices, you have one IP address, and then your port 25 goes to an internal mail server, port 23 goes to a different server. Well, that wasn't available in the MX devices up until this firmware release. So this has been long awaited, and it's here. So you can do everything that you can do now with other traditional devices. Anybody run into any of those issues where you needed to have, yep, there you go. I mean, it's certainly good that this is out now. So again, this the customer scenarios is just limited. The old way limited you to one IP address per internal IP address, and now you can have one IP address and use the ports to go to multiple servers internally. Any questions? Guys are on. So we're going to talk about some product updates and the new Meraki APs, and also for those of you that have hybrid environments and have Cisco controllers, h.IT and Prime now integrate with the Meraki APs so that you can actually tie them all back into your current infrastructure and have one management interface. You still have the cloud, right? But you have h.IT and Prime. Is that a good way to look at it? I'm not familiar with h.IT and Prime. Anybody have that? Anybody have Cisco controllers? Okay, got it. So h.IT and Prime, that manages your current controllers? Yeah. So
we have Prime, but not h.IT.
Okay, gotcha. So now that you're going to have that integration, and then also the new APs have a third radio. All APs now have a third radio, and then we'll go into why that's important. So the MR18s is 802.11n, and it has a dual radio, and it has a combined throughput of 600 megabits per second. And the MR26 has a combined throughput of 900 megabits per second. And the two also differ in range. The MR18's range is obviously smaller, and the MR26 is just a great radio. So those of you that have deployed MR16s, MR12s, like for example, when you sign up to do the Meraki webinars and you get a free AP, they send you an MR12 still.
18.
They do 18s now, okay. So now you get an MR18, which that's great. That's a dual radio, 600 megabits per second. In the past, the 12 was great for a room or for testing and things like that, but putting it in a production environment was really difficult because you didn't have the throughput. A lot of people start hitting it in one radio, that type of thing. But with two radios, I got to say, the MR16 worked incredibly well. So I can only imagine the MR18 is going to be a great option. Now, the third radio is important because it's going to constantly be scanning your network. It's going to constantly be looking for security threats and for alternate Wi-Fi connections. And if you guys use Air Marshal, you know that you can bombard an AP and shut it down. So, but that's taking that access point that's going to continuously bombard that one to shut it down. So you're losing an entire AP. Well, now with the third radio and having three radios, you're going to be able to shut those down and do things that you weren't able to do before. The constant security screening is a great benefit, but also it's going to scan the RF frequencies and dynamically update your radios to be on the best channel. So it's going to, if you are in an environment where you have, these 802.11n, that means they have 5 gigahertz and 2.4, or is it 2 5s? Are the radios 5 gig and 2.4? I think they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2.4 to 5 gigahertz. So that means that, on your dual banded devices, you're going to be able to connect to 2.4 clients and 5 gigahertz clients, and you can use both for those dual banded devices that actually have the dual banded radios. So with that being said, when there are 3 non-overlapping channels in an MR or in a 2.4 gigahertz wireless spectrum, so it's very crowded. I mean, that's where you always run into those issues. There are 20 non-overlapping channels in the 5 gigahertz spectrum, so it's much more wide and much more available for you guys to use. And that scanning of that radio will keep your networks running smooth and consistent with the rest of, well, with what your environment needs to handle. So, any questions? Yes? Yes, that's correct.
What's the highlighted differences?
Well, I think the main advancement is the third radio that they're adding to it. So the advanced security scanning. Now, it wasn't the MR24, the 26. I think at this point, every radio now has the third radio for security. But in the past, they only had the 2. So that's the main.
So all the enterprise, 18 to 26.
All the enterprise.
All of them.
Okay, so all the enterprise.
We're getting ready to order in the back.
Okay. Well, and I think that's going to give you a lot of flexibility because, you know, again, I've kind of got ahead of myself and told you about this stuff before the slide, but we'll recap. You know, that third radio is going to give you a little bit more security and a little bit more ability to see in your environment to do the RF scans and to continuously keep you running in a good, constant, safe, secure, awesome manner. So this is, of course, integrated with all the cloud-based software. Air Marshal. Has anybody used Air Marshal or played with it or scoped it out? All right. Good deal. Corey has. You have. So that's good. It adds no additional cost or complexity, and that's the other thing. The replacement. You said you were going to have replacement batch radios. That means that they're going to be the same cost as what you were paying before. So it's an added benefit. It doesn't cost anything extra to use that. And then this shows us. This shows us right here, you know, how Air Marshal will actually go out and scan the environment. If you can see, and I wish I had zoomed, but if you can see on the screen, you've got the little bubble around the access points in the clients, and you can see that something has been detected, a security threat at some point. So that's what Air Marshal is capable of doing, and you can set this up and get the information when you need it. And then, of course, again, this is repetitive. But it contains the rogue APs by blocking the clients from associating. It also blocks against packet floods, malicious spoofing of wireless LANs, addresses, and then unmanaged and insecure APs into the network. Because that's your biggest security concern. If you don't have a DHCP type lockdown security so that every device is authenticated or authorized before it connects to the network, then this will at least keep you to do that. That means that somebody can bring in their wireless router from Walmart, plug it in, get an IP address from their WAN port on your network, and then rebroadcast their now private address onto your network and access it the way they see fit. So this keeps you from doing that, or keeps them from doing that. So here's what the RF scanning looks like. So this is like a waterfall type screen. So I think that's the actual terms. What it does is it will start to, over time, process all the frequencies and then start to develop a pattern and then show you where the noise is and where the frequencies are actually located. So on the left-hand side of the bottom one, you see that there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of traffic. And over here on channel 8, we see channel 8's pretty much open. So that's what that gives you the ability to do. So as you're looking, and in the past, when you did that, it disconnected you from clients. So if you ever had a point-to-point wireless radio set up, like doing like what you have in Maiden, so you got a point-to-point device that extends your network. So if you were to do that spectrum analyzer, it would shut down the entire network. And if you set it on the wrong side, you just locked yourself out. So then you got to get in your car, drive out, connect to it, configure it, reboot it, whatever needs to happen. So unless it's set to auto expire. But here with this, with that third radio again, you can look at all of that. So we just got smarter. We didn't have to spend more money, and it just works. So any questions? All right. So basically, the entire platform now has that. So the MR16 from 2013 goes to the MR18, and it has the security radio built in. We also have the MR24, which we talked about, and then the MR26, and then of course the MR34, which is the AC radio. and then it's still called an MR34, so there's no change in name there. Actually, it was the same, right? Yeah, it was already the same. So again, the MR34, if you notice the speeds at the bottom, you have 1.75 gigabits per second of connectivity. So as you start to change laptops and as you start to change other devices, then you're going to talk about having Ethernet-capable speeds wirelessly with these devices. So the days of bottlenecks as you deploy these types of things are over, certainly internally. Externally, there's not an AC unit external yet. So we're still with the MR66 on that one. Here's the price points. So this is retail, of course, MR18s and MR26s. I pulled all of this data that I've got from various sources, thanks to Nova, and thanks to Amelia, and thanks to the sources inside of Cisco and Meraki. So this is what the retail price actually shows. And again, this is no additional cost over the MR16 and MR24. So the end of sale, of course, for the MR16s and 24s, I guess it has been announced. What is the end of life for that? You guys know on top of your head? Okay, no worries. Anyway, 7 years? Okay, gotcha. So, and here we've got the ICE and Prime integration. And what we've got here is, it's optimized for ease of management. Of course, it's in a hybrid environment. And what hybrid means is you still got the Meraki cloud infrastructure, but you have your local cloud. So that's what gives you that hybrid connection. So the architecture is this. It gives you the flexibility and simplicity of using both, but you can see on the left you've got your ARANET, your Catalyst, and your ISR and ASAs, and then you got your MX, MS, and MR. So MX is a Meraki security appliance, like the router type devices. MS is the switch, and MR is the radio. So that's the difference between those. And of course, there's new integration capabilities, so identity management, policy enforcement, and network visibility in the hybrid environments that gives you. You have the ICE integration, which manages the identities and policies. Is anybody, I already know that you're using one of them, but is anybody using the other ICE? Okay, all right. So the Meraki administration all remains in the cloud and the dashboard, but the on-premise remains there via the iOS and cloud managed features. So if anybody has any questions, let us know. So the availability is already out, as you can see. That was early 2014 on both of those. And then, of course, application policy for the infrastructure is going to be out later 2014. So I'm assuming in the next, by December 31st. So the next that we're going to talk about is enterprise mobility management. I know this is a big deal for Ash, and I know other of you folks have actually started using this. Is anybody using the Meraki Systems Manager? It's the free one, okay, so several of you are. So it's a great product. What it allows you to do is completely keep track of your mobile devices. It doesn't cost you anything. It does all of your alerting, reporting, and it's just a great add-on. If you want to go into a deep dive with this, you can install the software on client machines, create virtual barriers and silos, and completely contain your machines to a certain area, just like the ACL, so it gives you a lot more advanced features and throughput, or not throughput, information. So the enterprise mobility management is a little bit different. It allows you to provision, pre-enroll your devices that you have, and allows you to join into the network, and you can deploy it wirelessly, set up VPNs. You can push apps like you could now. You can restrict content and usage, etc., based on the user group. So if you have users that have, you got your 4G plan on Verizon, and it's, well, Verizon's government is free, so that you don't have to worry about that. But if you do have a clocked carrier or a carrier that is charging you, then that allows you to keep those users in check, and so you don't have to worry about getting those overage fees. You can monitor and track your laptops and mobile devices anywhere in the world. That means what it says. You give a bunch of phones out, and you pull up your screen, and you see where all those phones are. You see what they're doing. So you become Big Brother. Usually Big Brother is watching us, but now you guys can be Big Brother. So that's really good, especially for those of you that operate some type of fleet, or you have metered personnel going out to do things, or it's really good to be able to have that device on there. And if at some point Apple ever decides to let Meraki or anybody be able to remotely support these things by doing a screen share, that would be awesome, but Apple hasn't allowed it to happen just yet. I think you can do it on Androids, but just not Apple. Enable location services. Yeah. No, you have to install this. Yeah, you have to install the app on there for that to accurately work. Yes. So, and then of course, being secure, it's going to enable or ensure that your organization, you're secure from devices all the way through your policies, protects your devices, your data, etc. And gives you network access control. So obviously, you got. We all have issues now, I think, with bring your own device policies where some of you have adopted them, some of you have not, but it's very important to understand if you're going to have that policy, what you can do and how you're going to keep it separated. One thing I did want to say, though, before we get to the end, we're going to have some questions here for those of you that have some, but it also, what I did not put the slide on there, but you can actually now segregate like your personal apps and business apps on an iPhone. So if you have a BYOD device, the user has an iPhone, they come to you and they want to get your corporate email, you can now push the corporate email out and actually keep it as a separate app. And if that user gets released or fired or moves to go to another job, you can, in the dashboard, remove all of the corporate apps from that device. So now you have greater control with using the BYOD policies that you didn't have. And enterprise does come at a cost. It's per user, so it's a per user fee to use those features. But it's comparable to Zen Mobile. It's comparable to the other enterprise mobility vendors that are out there. So I like this version a lot better than some of the others that are out there. Zen Mobile's a beast to set up and a beast to support. This is just, it's in the cloud. They've done the hard work for you. You guys can start enrolling devices now. I mean, it's that simple. So I certainly didn't want to bore everybody to death. I know some of you were out last night having a good time. So anybody that has any questions, please feel free to ask. I can take people through the dashboard. Yes, sir, Thomas.
On the MR26 it was, you say that what was the connection speed wirelessly and what was the speed to the physically wired back to the switch?
So it's a gigabit wired back to the switch,
Okay.
and the MR26, I believe that was 900 megabits per second. Yeah. So 900 megabits per second for that. So, that's not necessarily, that doesn't mean that your clients connecting are going to get 900 megabits per second, because the wireless radios that are in our laptops, they're not capable of pushing that. But what that gives you the ability to do, if these devices are meshing, then it will allow them to create a backhaul between each other, but it also has enough adequate bandwidth so that if you have a lot of users, there's enough bandwidth there to disperse amongst the users to use. So the bottleneck is still the endpoint client device. So, good question. Any more questions? Great. Oh, got one. Yes, sir.
Any changes on the outdoor products, 66 or anything like that?
I haven't seen any changes even on the roadmap yet. I'm sure that, obviously at some point they will make some changes. So the MR66 is still the flagship product for being outdoor. The MR66 has two radios, 2.4 on the top, 5 gigahertz on the bottom, and the 62 has a 2.4 gigahertz radio on top. So, yes, Steve?
The mobility management part, there's two of them.
There's two products. There's a free one and the paid one. Yeah, and the free one does a lot of great stuff. If you need this extra security, this extra lockdown, this ability to accurately monitor and manage your clients, then that's where the cost comes in. Yep. I do not. Do you know costs for Corey?
Yeah, so it's the same thing from a licensing standpoint, a 1 year, a 3 year, or a 5 year. Per client on the 1 year is $40 list price. I would say it's software, so make sure you talk to us so we can work on that appropriately. And really it comes down to how many devices are we talking about, right? But on a 1 year, just to give you a flavor, right, $40 per device per month. And then there's obviously there's incremental cost breaks if you go 3 year or 5 year, right?
Is that each client now, like somebody has a phone, has a tablet? that's two
No,
clients?
it's per device enrolled.
Per device.
Yes. Good question.
Absolutely. So per device, not per user. I don't know if any of you noticed, but recently there was a firmware update to switches that gave a lot of you layer 3 capabilities. So I'm sure as NCLGISA moves forward and we move more into that, as you guys start deploying those types of things, we'll have more. Yes, sir.
Touch on the upgrade process and the new firmware.
Absolutely. I will do one better. I will touch on the upgrade process, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. Everybody can see, if we got a second here. So when we log into the dashboard to see this firmware update, I'm going to log in here. Oh, I don't have it in there. Go figure. Okay, so the dashboard will actually show you what the, so when you go into the device tabs and click on device information, I think it's client status or switch status. It's on the statuses section of the monitor tab on the top left. And when you click on edit that, it actually shows you if the device configuration is up to date and if there is a firmware. Well, if you can click on the edit page there and then actually say, okay, I want to automatically do firmware updates when they're available to me at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday. And you can schedule that and then they will occur and it will keep your devices up to date. If you don't want to do that and you want to actually push them out, then you just, it will tell you that the device update's available when you click edit. Then you just click apply update now and it will apply it and reboot. And that's as simple as that. You don't have to download the software, you don't have to upload it, you don't have to authenticate to it. It's just a click update and it's okay. So
Essentially,
reboot it, yeah. So that's exactly right. The downtime is the reboot.
So this firmware,
Right. You know, hit your maintenance windows and then compliance. You can't get any compliance windows that you have. There is a second firmware on the device. So if something goes wrong, it will have, you know, it's not like, it is kind of like if the power goes out. I'm not sure if that's the way it is when we use like it was on old devices.
Yeah, we partition the firmware during the download, and if anything, the checksum fails, we go back. But in regards to, yeah, you can all support it anytime you can go from. We just don't like the download. It's called support, so we'll push it back.
Yeah.
It'll last a while, but we'll still push it back.
Yeah, they're going to want to ask you some questions. So, is there any more questions, comments, concerns? If not, yes, sir.
This for it calls multi-bathroom?
The switches in the MX,
Yeah, it calls multi-bathroom. That's kind of one way.
do you know that?
So what are you trying to do with it?
Basically very low-level load balancing outbound.
Okay.
Split data centers, you gotta do some.
Oh, so yes.
Go ahead, the MX can, obviously. Go ahead.
Okay, the MX can. The MX has features now that you can actually do load balancing across data centers. So you can set up the, I guess it's the RRB in that sense as well, across the two. And then so if the heartbeat failure occurs and you have to roll over to another DC, then you certainly can do that. So it's a global services type load balancing. But that feature is available. And of course, in switches, I think the MX is where you have to have that. Any more questions? Okay. So I'll hang around if anybody wants to come and talk, chat, and for those of you that want to, ask the ladies up here any questions, they're here. Corey is an account manager. He's the outside rep, and Nova's the inside rep. So your North Carolina team is all in the room. So please take advantage of it while you can. And enjoy the rest of your day and sessions and everything else.